techno queen.
Yeah, so am I.
Okay, everybody, we're going to start in 1 minute.
Just, are you working?
Ooh, yes, it's working. He's got 30 seconds. I'll let him on. Good evening, everyone. More of a packed house than I thought it was going to be tonight, so welcome. Good to see so many faces. Thanks to all for coming. This is a full meeting of Frome Town Council. I'm Sarah Butler and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. Just to remind everyone, as well as everyone here in the room, we have people online. So for speakers, anyone speaking, if you can remember to speak into your microphone so that those on the other end of the computer tube can hear us. A little bit of housekeeping. The emergency exit is over there. Hopefully we won't need to use it. Assembly point is at the far side of the car park. Toilets at the end of the corridor on the right, and accessible toilet to the right of the lift. Tea, coffee and water over in the corner. Paul is clerking. Sarah and Rachel are managing the questions board and the IT generally. We are being recorded and live streamed to our YouTube channel. Are we on that? Yeah, so that's live. If you're attending via Zoom, please use the yellow hand if you want to say something or ask a question, and everyone else use your actual hand. First on the agenda is apologies for absence. I think we've only had one of those to my knowledge, and that's Nick Duff. Can I have somebody to propose to accept the apologies for this evening, please? Thank you, Philip. Seconded by Fiona. All those agreeing?
I think that's unanimous.
Thanks, Mel. We next need to approve the minutes from the last meeting on the 10th of August. Can I have a proposer for that, please? Andy, thank you. Anita, seconded. Everyone in favour?
I think we're on a roll. That was
Unanimous
too.
Marvellous. And then swiftly on to agenda item number 2, which is questions and comments from the public and councillors. Do we have any of those?
Rachel, is there any online?
No questions? Okay, we can come back at the end if there is anything pressing. Moving even more swiftly on. Agenda item 3 is possible next steps as a result of current closure of Frome Birthing Centre. This, I believe, is being led by my colleague Carla.
Thank you. Can I just check, is Sarah online?
Move away from the speaker.
That was okay. Rachel's muted now.
You have Sarah online?
Sure, yeah.
No, Sarah, we don't have a Sarah as an attendee. No, not
So
yet.
she's due, but she's not here yet.
Okay, all right, we might have to change things around a bit. So my name's Carla Collinette. I'm a town councillor for Oakfield Ward, and I was requested by a member of the community to bring this agenda item to council. It's close to my heart. I gave birth to my son at home 2 years ago with the help of the Frome Birthing Centre. So the purpose of this evening is, first of all, to kind of raise awareness of the fact that it has been closed for most of the year, actually since December last year, and to kind of bring us all up to speed. So I know some people that work very closely to this issue know the ins and outs, but actually many people, the council, the councillors and the wider community don't. So it's really to kind of raise our understanding of the complexity of the issue, and it is a complex issue. So the purpose is not to kind of finger point and search for blame, because it is multiple issues coming together. So we've actually asked Sarah Merritt from NHS Maternity Services to give us the background to what's happening. She is joining us by Zoom, hopefully. So I've also invited Maternity Voice Partnership, Amber, who's going to speak also, talking about the rights of women and also the impact upon the local community and other things. I've also invited Charlotte from Frome National Childbirth Trust, who've actually started a petition objecting to the closures, who's also going to talk about the impact on the community and also why women don't want to give birth or might not want to give birth in a hospital, which is not immediately obvious to people. Like, well, they can go to the RUH. Why wouldn't women want to give birth in a hospital? So it's also going to explain a little bit why that would be the case. I've also invited friends of Frome Hospital, Nick and Ken, and Frome Birth Talk, where's Susie, anybody else, community group that I invited. Okay, so we've got Frome Town Council staff here, and we've got Frome Town Council councillors, as well as members of the public and also people on Zoom. So the first step will be getting up to speed, and then we'll move to solution finding. So in one sense, it's like, well, what can Frome Town Council do? This is a kind of national problem, highly complex, lots of different systems involved. But the way that we work in Frome, as everybody knows, is that actually we think we should, first of all, bring this to the community, convene the different parties, and actually look at, well, maybe there are solutions, small things, or maybe they're things that have been missed, or maybe it's a matter of just really understanding the complexity of the situation. So at one point we'll move to a discussion, and I'll probably become even more bossy, Steve, that I would like, not to you personally, but that I'd like to kind of mix the tables up a bit so that we don't have people that already know a lot about the issue on one table and people that know nothing on the other tables. And then we'll move to a discussion, and then we'll hear back from those groups, and then we'll move to recommendations and my recommendations to the council. Anything I've missed?
No, you haven't missed anything. I'm just wondering, have we got Sarah online yet?
No. Does anyone have Sarah's email? I'll email her.
I do. I think, Paul, you have it as well, don't you?
I'll probably have it, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So maybe we can start then, if that's okay.
yeah, the other way around.
Amber, are you okay to start? And then when Sarah joins.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Amber Strong, and I am a pregnancy, birth and postnatal doula in the local area. But as Carla said, I'm also the vice chair of the Somerset Maternity Voices Partnership. Okay, or do you want me to pass it back?
Probably makes sense.
Yeah, do you want to let Sarah go? I'll pass you back to Sarah.
Okay. So, as I said, Sarah Merritt is here representing NHS Maternity Services. Sarah, can you hear us? And are you ready to give us a bit of background about why the Frome Birthing Centre has been closed since last December?
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry I was a bit late. I joined on the Teams meeting instead of the Zoom one. Can you all hear me okay? Yes? Yep. Yeah? Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you tonight. Can I just give you a little bit of background about what's happened in maternity services over the last year or so? Is that helpful if I do that first? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not sure who's chairing the meeting, so I don't know who's driving me through.
I'm chairing the meeting. I'm Sarah Butler. Carla Collinette is leading the discussion in this section.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so over the last couple of years, maternity services has faced quite a challenge, particularly as a result of COVID. So we've seen a number of our midwives leave the service or decide to retire from the service, which has created quite a difficult period of time for us in terms of our ability to recruit into posts. There's been a national shortage of midwives, as I'm sure you're aware from seeing that on the national press. Therefore, there isn't a large pool of experienced midwives to recruit from, and that whilst we have a steady supply of newly qualified midwives, we have a pool of about 12 or 13 midwives every 6 months that we can recruit into our services upon qualification. And whilst we do recruit into posts from our midwives that we support through their training, once they have qualified from their student midwifery post into qualified status, it takes some time to get them up to speed in terms of qualified status. So they require a period of supernumerary time with us, preceptorship, and then induction, and need to stay with us in the acute service for about 6 months. So as a result of the things I've just described to you, it meant that we actually had quite a deficit in our posts. And at one point we had just short of 30 whole-time equivalent posts vacant in our service. I have a midwifery team of 151 midwives, and I had 27, nearly 28 whole-time equivalent posts vacant at one point. We've had some success over the last 6 months in recruiting. So since May, I have recruited 13 newly qualified midwives and about 11 experienced midwives into post. So that's a pretty good performance considering we are in a national shortage and the numbers of newly qualifieds coming through. However, we have had some experienced midwives also leave the service in that time frame. So we still have some gaps in the service, which is the reason that I've not been able to completely fill all of my midwifery team to provide the whole range of services that we would like to. I'd firstly like to apologise that we've not been able to provide all the community births that we'd like to, but our main priority is to keep everybody safe. And if I was to try and staff all of the areas, that just wouldn't be the case. So I recognise that people are disappointed by the decisions that we've had to take, but it has been as a result of trying to maintain the safety for everybody. Shall I pause there and see if there's any questions in relation to staffing or our challenges?
Yes, thank you. And I should have said this at the beginning, but what we would like to do is just ask clarifying questions to the speakers until we get to the discussion, rather than kind of moving to discussion straight away. And I think we have a couple of questions already.
Thank you.
Hello, Nick White from Friends of Frome Hospital, trustee. Just wanted to clarify, is it correct that we are 4 midwives short of being able to run full service at Frome?
Yes, Frome is one of the areas that aren't quite so challenged in terms of staffing. As you'll understand, Frome midwifery team is a small team. There's about 12 or 13 midwives. So whilst 4 might seem quite a small number, that's actually more than a quarter of their full team. But we do have new members of staff joining Frome within the next month or so, and Frome has got the appetite to reintroduce the continuity of carer model as soon as it's safe to do so. And it is one of the areas that we are looking at reintroducing home births sooner rather than later, so within the next month to 6 weeks. I don't think Frome will be in a position to support births in both the home birth choice as well as the community unit, but we are doing everything we can in order to try and support everybody that wants community birth in Frome.
Can I ask, will we be able to provide a birthing service at night in Frome?
Yep, we'll be able to provide a service across the whole 24-hour period once we can reinstate the community births. Yes.
It's good to hear. Thank you.
Thanks,
Can I just add to that, Nick? Can I just add to that? Once we reinstate births, we don't want to withdraw it again. So we need to be really confident that we can reintroduce it safely. And as you know, babies don't come in just daylight hours. So once we reintroduce it, it's got to be across the 24-hour period.
Max.
So I'm just trying to understand the nature of the issue. So are we saying that this is a temporary situation?
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Is your mic on, Max?
It is on.
It is on.
That is
It was before. Takes a while to warm up. Sorry. Can you hear me now, Sarah?
I can hear you loud and clear now.
Thank you. So I'm just trying to understand the nature of the issue here. Are we saying that this is a temporary situation caused purely by staff shortages, which will be remedied in a short space of time? Or are we saying that we can't continue this service because of funding issues?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, funding is not the issue. It's the availability of midwifery staff and the ability to recruit into vacant posts.
So when would you estimate then that all being well, the whole service will be back online, so to speak?
So my expectation is that we will be able to offer some community births. I'm not yet sure whether that will be home births or Frome unit births or a mixture of both in October, with a full service resuming sometime in November across both community and home.
Are there any more clarification questions for Sarah? Nope. Okay.
No.
Carla, next move.
Just wanted to check, Sarah, you paused there because you were talking about staffing issues. Was there more that you wanted to explain and giving the wider context?
Yeah, so I'll just add a little bit more. So in January, we've got another 13 newly qualified midwives due to start with us. But again, those midwives will need a period of time in the acute unit to consolidate their training, to work supernumerary and be supervised by our experienced midwives. So they do take a little bit of time to be up and running. And then as a result, you've probably heard of the Ockenden review. They need to be in the acute unit for 6 months to consolidate their registered status, and then only come out to the community if they show a desire to or feel confident to do that. So that's why there's not a ready supply of midwives that can come straight out to the community units. Having said that, a number of our experienced midwives that we've just appointed have actually said they want to come out and work in the community units, which is really positive. And we will obviously be encouraging them to do that. And actually we will be allocating them to community posts in the first instance, rather than a joint post or in the acute unit. So that's really positive. And actually, I feel very fortunate that we have been able to recruit around about 11 experienced midwives into the service. It does mean that, however, we have poached them from elsewhere.
I think we've got a question from somebody online, Rachel.
I can't hear Rachel, I'm sorry.
Ellie Clark. Are you there, Ellie?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, hi. Sorry about that. And does the strain on the ambulance service, is that factored into the reduction in the midwifery, the community and home birth reduction?
Ellie?
Hi.
Hiya, Ellie. Explain what you mean in a little bit more detail.
Just something that I'd heard was because of ambulance waiting times, that was also playing into the reduction of those home and community birth services.
No, not at all. That does have no factor on it whatsoever. It really is, because I'll just explain our service in a little bit more detail. So we book just short of 5,000 women or birthing people every year to have a baby with us in our maternity services across Bath and the 4 geographical units. And of course, those ladies, women, need antenatal appointments across the pathway, and then care in labour, and then the postnatal care afterwards. And I just haven't got the midwives currently to be able to provide all of that care for all of those ladies across all of those different pathways, which is why I've had to pull my resources into the acute unit at the moment to ensure that everybody gets the care that they need, and nobody's put at risk as a result. So nothing to do with the ambulance wait times at all, although we do have to counsel women that want a home or community birth that, should they require a transfer, we need to take that into consideration.
Thank you, Sarah. Does that answer your question, Ellie?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions online, Rachel? Any other questions in the room? Carla.
Hi, Sarah, it's Carla. My understanding also, because I came to your meeting on Friday, and I think also it's kind of known in the whole of the country. So there's quite a lot of midwives leaving. So because it's such a stressful job, and because of the conditions that they work in, because of the pay, because of the debt that they get into doing their training, do you know what is being done to help retain new midwives? And I know when you mentioned on Friday as well that some people did actually start this year, but because they had some of their training during COVID, they didn't get past the first month.
It's there's a quite a complex answer to your question across a number of different areas. Firstly, if I talk about the midwives that are leaving, you may be aware that up until a few years ago, nurses and midwives working in the NHS were able to retire at 55, and we are an ageing workforce, so there are a number of midwives that actually reached that retirement age that maybe wouldn't have retired if we hadn't had COVID, but actually COVID made them decide to retire at 55 when they were able to draw their pension. A number of our midwives, having had COVID over the last couple of years, only really had their first training year pre-COVID, and then the rest of it was during COVID. So their experience was very different to student midwives that have gone before them. And certainly the removal of the bursary and the fact that student midwives now have to pay for their university fees and then come out of university with a debt at the other end of it has prevented a significant number of people wanting to do their midwifery training. Certainly we've seen more mature students not want to do their training because of it. They're not in a position to be able to financially afford to do their training, and particularly if they have a family as well. It has put a number of people off. There is the opportunity now to do a blended learning approach, which is some home learning as well as university-based and hospital-based, which has attracted a number of people coming through. We're also pushing for the 18-month conversion course, which is enabling people to do their nurse training and then convert to become a midwife. It's what I did when I did mine, and it was very, very popular at the time. And they're also looking at students now having more of a grant or bursary approach, so they don't come through with a debt at the other end of it. We're also looking at a pathway for our maternity care assistants, maternity support workers to do the apprenticeship. A bit like nurses, there's the nursing apprentice that then you go through about 3 years of training to become a registered nurse at the end of it. They're now just introducing that for midwives as well. So there is definitely light at the end of the tunnel, and I feel the future is looking more positive. But of course, all of that takes a little bit of time. Having said that, attracting people into posts, as we have done over the last few months, is definitely something that boosts recruitment, and we are now seeing a pretty healthy pipeline of people coming in. So I do feel that the future is looking much more rosy than it has done for the last year or so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Anita.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm just wondering about how newly qualified midwives are allocated, because presumably it's not just, sorry, I can't quite see behind me. Presumably it's not just Frome and Bath who are on the list waiting for midwives. So are there any priorities put in place about how these people are chosen, or is it down to population, or how does that work?
No, when the universities, so we are commissioned to take about 25 student midwives a year, and we have to do that based on our ability to support them through their training. The last thing we want to do is not give them a good experience or not be able to support them through their training. And certainly if they're caring for people throughout the pregnancy pathway, they need to be supervised. So I need to have enough midwives to supervise them. We've got a process in Bath where we will automatically give our students a job at the end of it, obviously providing they qualify and they get their degrees, etc. So that's the process that we are using, and it's proved to be very popular and has enabled us to secure midwives into post. The midwives can, though, go elsewhere. They do, through their training, experience other hospitals, and the way the NHS jobs works means that they can actually apply to multiple places. And so we do find that we lose a few at the other end, because Bristol may offer them a post as well. And of course, Bristol's got fetal medicine and other exciting, shiny services with a bigger tertiary unit. And so they feel that their experience there may be better. We've got a midwife now who concentrates solely on retention and preceptorship and midwifery experience and health and well-being, and she's proved to be a really really positive introduction into our service, and has definitely made a difference in terms of keeping in touch with our newly qualified midwives due to start with us, and so far our dropout rate has been pretty minimal. But our newly qualified midwives, as I said a moment ago, cannot go out to the community. That's one of the things that we just cannot do. That's out of our gift. So they do have to stay in the acute unit for that minimal of 6 months.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions in the room or online? Okay, thank you. Over to you, Carla.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I'm now going to pass to Amber, who's from the Maternity Voice Partnership, Somerset.
Thank you.
Hello again, everyone. I won't do that bit again. So for those of you that have never heard of a Maternity Voices Partnership, we will from now on refer to it as an MVP, because otherwise it's a bit of a mouthful. It was brought about as part of the Better Births initiative, which made it clear that those that use the service or service users should work collaboratively with the care providers and clinical commissioners of maternity services to inform, improve and design a service that better met families' needs. So essentially, before that, trusts and hospitals set about providing maternity service that they thought people would want, rather than actually providing a service that people wanted. So instead, now we inform that service, and it's more accurately reflective of a service that people want and need, rather than what they think we need. Essentially, we're the voice of people that use the service. So I'm Somerset MVP, which geographically covers Frome, but Frome Birth Centre and a lot of the people who give birth in this area might use RUH, and Frome itself comes under RUH, which is a totally different trust from the trust I operate in, which is Somerset. Very confusing and doesn't make an awful lot of sense, but geographically we overlap in lots of ways, and the effects that these closures have had are felt, the ripple effects are felt by everybody in this area. There are obviously families that straddle both. So there are people who, for instance, live in Shepton Mallet, who might have planned to have their baby at Frome Birth Centre because they want to be in midwife-led units, who now find themselves having to rethink their entire birth plan, and they might move their care instead to Yeovil, or go towards Mary Stanley, which is Bridgewater way. So people are having to totally readjust their plans for birth. There are people, again, the other side, who might be more Wiltshire border, who are looking to try and move their care to that side instead. So the ramifications of the closures here have huge effects for not just the people in Frome, but the people who live in and around Frome. We do live in a rural area, so losing our birth centre means it takes away the option of giving birth there, obviously. It makes the assumption that people have access to a car. Not everybody will have a car. It's not as simple as you go into labour, you get in your car, you get to the RUH. That's not a feasible option for every family. Frome is reasonably well sourced with public transport. You have buses and we have a train station. For outlying villages, we probably don't have a train. We quite often don't have buses. So the additional stress of how those families get to that hospital is huge. Add to that, you might have young children at home. Who's going to stay with those young children whilst you try and scramble a lift to a hospital? Taxi drivers don't really like to take labouring women for obvious reasons. So there's layers and complexities to why many people book a home birth. Aside from the fact it's evidence-based and it's very safe, there are logistical reasons why people in rural areas might make that decision. Aside from the fact some people labour really quickly, people who have a history of precipitous labour, so very fast labours, might have made that informed decision to have a home birth or to book in at Frome, which for a lot of people in Frome is very close to them. Or again, if you're in an outlying village, is the quickest way to be near a midwife. If you know that you labour quickly, it's far safer for you to have a booked home birth or to be planning to birth at Frome Birth Centre than to try and get in the car and make a journey to the RUH, which for some people is an hour on a good day. On a bad day, it can be worse than that, depending on traffic and the time of day. So add to that, even if it was people's choice to go to the RUH, the stresses of trying to get there are really real. And for some people, it's not their preferred choice. It's not where they would have chosen to give birth. So they are having to make difficult decisions very quickly. And for those who know they have a history of precipitous labour, 2-3 years ago, the advice would have been to book a home birth or to go to Frome Birth Centre, because that would have been the safest way to birth their baby. So it seems nonsensical now to be saying, no, get in a car, go to the RUH, and if you have to pull over in a lay-by or by the side of the road, that's fine, we'll just deal with it. Or actually the alternative might be, we'll just suggest that you come in for an induction and we'll just force your baby out at a date and time that suits us, which is sometimes also what happens, because the provision of the service is not there. It's madness. The impacts of the closures on the community can't be underestimated. I work as a doula, and my colleagues, we hear every day from people who contact us to ask for support, and it's constant. We signpost them to support services almost daily. The people that we work with, we prepare them for births that might not be quite what they initially envisioned. Very often we come to work with them postnatally and listen as they tell us how devastated they are, and how they and their family are feeling the ramifications of not having a choice. There's been a significant increase in breastfeeding referrals. I think Alice would tell you about that. We get lots of feedback regarding lack of feeding support and inconsistent advice, with lots of people discharging themselves from hospital early because they just feel it's detrimental to their feeding journey to stay. And that's despite a really good team of breastfeeding peer support at the RUH, but there's not enough of them, and it's very busy there. And you'll hear from Frome Birth talk about their increase in referrals. And the common theme there would be the suspension and closures. It is a right to have a birth at home. It's a fundamental human right. You should have 4 choices about where you give birth or how you give birth. You should be able to choose an intended free birth, which is just you at home, no midwife or medical assistance. A home birth is attended and supported by a midwife. You should be able to choose a midwife-led unit, such as Frome, or a consultant-led hospital, such as the RUH. And in our area, you now only really have 1.5, 2 choices. I say 1.5 because there's a very real difference between an intended free birth that you have absolutely chosen from the offset, and a birth where you are at home and you would like a midwife to attend you, and then you call and there's nobody available, and you end up thinking, I'm just going to have to carry on because I don't want to go to hospital.
Sorry, Amber, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up in the next minute or so.
So it's a legal right for you to have a home birth. It's protected under Article 8 of the Human Rights Act to a private and family life, which includes the right to choose where you give birth and who is present. The issue we're facing at the moment is that it's a qualified right, which means that rights can be restricted when there is a legitimate aim and where the restriction is proportionate. And this means that the trust should only suspend or close if they've looked at all other viable options to keep them going. So they've assured us they have, and recruitment and retention are undoubtedly an issue, but they also seem to be reluctant to reinstate until a more equitable service can be maintained. And the service is very far from being equitable, and it hasn't been for a long time. And even in the RUH, it's not an equitable service. So the feedback that we get and what we would say is that anything is better than nothing. And as Sarah said, if they can open up this month, October, home birth or Frome Birth Centre, anything is better than nothing. So even if it's not a full service that resumes, a choice for people is better than no choice. So we would take that, and an option for parents would be better than no option.
Thanks very much, Amber. Any questions?
So again, clarifying questions.
Clarifying questions, Fiona?
You said an equitable service, so I don't quite understand what you mean by that.
So equal for all. So if they were to reinstate home births, but not be able to give everybody who booked a home birth, that's where they're saying, or if they opened up the birth centre, but perhaps we didn't have enough staff to staff it. Like I think that Nick said, but what about if they couldn't staff it overnight? They say you went into labour overnight, but there weren't any midwives to staff it overnight. That's the case. So in Yeovil, for instance, we have had situations where we haven't had midwives all the time, and not everybody has had a home birth. So it's not ideal, but at least some people would be getting a home birth, or some people would be able to have their baby at Frome.
Is there not, though, then an issue with people trying to plan and not then being able to make a plan because they don't know what will be in place?
The issue there, I think, is having really honest and open dialogue in all antenatal appointments, and across the board, actually, every time you speak with your midwife. I think everybody now knows the state of the services. They know it would be unrealistic to expect that they're going to have necessarily a completely open service. So when they meet with their midwife and say, ideally, I want this, their midwife needs to say, we'll do our best to meet that. But there is a chance that given staffing, we might not be able to open the birth centre, or we might not be able to support your home birth if staffing levels don't quite allow it. I think we need to be aiming to try and do that, but allow for some realism in terms of this is where we're at. It's where we've been for a long time. So be honest with people when you have those appointments, and do say to them, do please have a contingency plan. Do please consider what kind of birth you might like if you were to go to RUH, or do consider how you would feel if you were opting for a free birth. But I think we need to be trying to consider, we're not going to have everything. We're so far away from having an equitable service for everybody. We're just not there.
Thanks, Amber. Sarah, was there anything you wanted to come back on?
Thank you.
Nick.
Yes, just
Sarah first.
Oh,
No,
thank you.
Sarah on the YouTube computer thingy.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. Thank you to Amber for a very clear account of the role of the MPV working with us. Firstly, I have held a number of listening events now with our community, and I asked them what it would be that they would like around an equitable service, or whether some choice. And very clearly I heard some choice was what they would be happy to accept in the first instance, and that is what we are working towards. What I need to do is work out what staff I have and what service I can reinstate safely and reliably, because the last thing I want to do is either disappoint somebody as they go into labour, or even worse, not be able to provide somebody for them unexpectedly at short notice. So my priority here is to make sure that I can reinstate a safe and reliable service. I just want to correct something, Amber, that you said around induction of labour. We don't induce mums for our convenience. We only ever induce mums if there is a clinical need for either mum or baby. So I just wanted to clarify that point.
Thanks, Sarah. Nick.
I just wanted to say that I'm glad to hear from Sarah that we're going to be in a situation where in Frome the the birthing unit service is going to be restored to the service that we've come to expect. Because obviously, as Friends of Frome Hospital, we are concerned that if the services that are currently provided at the hospital diminish, and if the birthing unit disappears, there's a very good chance the whole hospital might disappear. It would just be chipped away at. But just to address the issues that Sarah has, because it does feel a little bit unfair, is that as a society, we've seen 13% of the workforce aged between 55 and retirement age actually retire from the workplace, regardless of occupation. It's a fact. 13% is a massive drop in skilled working population over the last 2.5 years. And so it's in the face of that reality that the challenge Sarah has in recruitment and retaining staff. And I think she's done a tremendous job in getting the levels of recruitment that means that we can go back to operating in Frome in October. So I think she should be applauded for that.
Thank you. And Sarah, I think you wanted to come back on that, did you?
Yeah, thank you for that. Can I just reassure everybody, please, that our maternity service will be reinstated. There is absolutely no way we will be losing our Frome maternity service at all. It's not on our agenda at all. We want to reinstate it as soon as it's safe to do so.
Alice, there's a little switchy thing on the side, and speak directly into it.
Hi, Sarah. I was at the meeting on Friday, and that's not what I understood. I understood that there was a plan to reopen in October, but you could not confirm it.
Alice, I couldn't confirm exactly what the plan was. There's never been a plan not to reinstate the full service in Frome. What I couldn't confirm with you on Friday, and I still can't, is exactly what I can reinstate, because I've still got staff starting, and until they actually start, I cannot tell you exactly which bit of the service I can reinstate yet, whether it's home births, whether it's Frome community unit births, or whether it's both. That's the bit I cannot confirm just yet, but I can confirm that the ambition is to reinstate some, if not all, of the service as soon as possible.
I think that word ambition is really important. You did just say just a minute ago that that there was going to be a service in October, and now you're saying it's ambition. Yeah. I just think it's really important to have that language clear.
Okay. My ambition would be to reinstate the whole service in October, but I don't realistically think that is going to happen. I think I will be doing either home births or Frome births. I don't think I can do absolutely every birth.
Amber, did you want to come in on that?
I just wanted to say that quite a few people had messaged to say that they felt really strongly about the closures and the suspensions, but many of them are either pregnant themselves or newly postpartum, and so being asked to attend these meetings or constantly engage in these conversations when they already feel really vulnerable is really difficult. So numbers in the room or engagements online shouldn't be interpreted as lack of interest or lack of priority engagement. The fact it's so consuming is why so many people feel they can't always be in these spaces. So I think the feeling is really high, it's really emotive, and they can't always be present in a way that they'd like to, but that shouldn't be interpreted as them not being really passionate about it.
Thanks, Amber. Moving on from that is a conversation for another forum, but are there any other clarification questions? Or Sarah, do you want to have one more word on that?
No, I'm happy, thank you.
Thank you. Rachel, any questions online? Carla, did you want to say something to wrap that conversation up?
I'm going to pass to the Frome National Childbirth Trust, okay. Charlotte.
Hi. I'll touch on who I am briefly. So I've been involved with.
I think you need to turn the microphone on or speak directly.
So I'm a bit closer. Is that fair? I've been involved with NCT, National Childbirth Trust, since I had my first baby in 2016. I have engaged with the MVP, the maternity transformation program that took place at the RUH, and have set up a CIC alongside Alice to support infant feeding in Frome. I set up the petition really just to give a voice, as Amber said, to the people that maybe cannot engage in the way that the RUH and others are sort of providing options for. So we understand, the staffing crisis. We understand that this is a national picture. We're not trying to, be obstructive with the petition, but really we kind of just wanted to gather the voices of people together and give them an easy way to engage, to raise the profile, to give something that we can escalate, up to local MPs and government, because obviously this is a national issue, as has been said, many times. And it is really emotive, and some of the feedback on the petition is really difficult. And I have engaged with Friends of Frome Hospital before as well. I think, when we were doing the transformation programme, there was a chance during that transformation programme that Frome would close. So in 2017, Poulton and Trowbridge birth centres closed to births, and Frome and Chippenham stayed open. And I think that was in no small part due to the fact that Frome put up a lot of opposition to closure of the birth centre. It's also wonderfully resourced by the Friends of Frome Hospital. It's a lovely place to give birth. So I think that, with the background of there have been birth centres closed before, I think it's kind of important to know that mothers do feel that the service is not maybe as secure as they would like it to be. Throughout COVID, it's obviously been patchy. It's been on, off, but, it has been closed now for almost a year. So the petition was kind of a last ditch attempt to get something to happen. And I think Amber touched a lot on kind of the safety aspect. It may be unsafe, or Sarah may say it's unsafe to staff a unit or have home births that are not staffed to the correct level. But it's also really unsafe to ask women to travel to a location that is so far from their home that they may not make it to. It's unsafe to suggest that people birth without a midwife present because they feel that is their only option. I'll read some of the comments from the petition.
Perhaps we could, I'm just keen to move this on. So perhaps we could save that for the table discussions, to have the discussion around some of the comments that have been made. Carla, is there the next step to this process?
Thank you. So I'm aware of time and that there's lots of people in the room. So there are experts in the room that really know this field very well. There are people in the room that have either have directly affected or have got family that's directly affected. So I'm very keen to kind of move to discussion. And what I would suggest is, so we've kind of got a whole little table here of expertise, and we've got some tables with just counsellors. No offence, probably not experts in this area. So if we could kind of mix it up a bit, so I'll get you to move in a moment. I'll just to explain what we're going to do. And I'm wondering, can we move the laptop around? How can we involve Sarah? Have we got a laptop that she can join one of the table discussions, or at least listen?
Sarah, is there a way that can happen?
I'm very happy for you to use me however best you think that will be.
You'll be on a laptop, Sarah, and you're going to be plonked on the table.
I don't mind how I'm used. I mean, I'm even happy if you just want the mic to be waving around and people ask me questions. I'm happy to help in any way I can.
So I think we'll keep you at one table.
Okay.
So we're going to have 15. Oh, sorry.
I don't think we're going to be able to get Sarah on one table. With the only way she can hear sound from the chamber is through the mic, and that means the rest of the room will hear everything that's directed just at Sarah.
And sorry to interrupt you, Carla. I've got 2 comments, I think, before the discussions start from the lady here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I wish I have to declare an interest here. I am a midwife. Sarah's my boss. Thank you, Sarah.
Hello.
I love my job. I'm deeply heartbroken to hear what you're all saying because I don't agree with all of it. My experience is that I finished nights this morning after a 13-hour shift. We work to a level of exhaustion. We can do no more. And you've used words like everybody, huge effects, ramification, forcing babies at induction. These are deeply contentious comments which do not cover the whole of the service. I know I work to 120%, as do my colleagues. The reason the young girls, the newly qualified midwives, aren't staying is because it is such a high pressure job. I qualified in 1984. I'm still a midwife, and I will remain proud. What anyone ever dares say about midwifery service, I remain proud to call myself a midwife, and Sarah to be my boss, and I'm not a plant tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'm sure that will come up in the table discussions. One more comment, Nick, if it's quick.
No, I just wondered what the reason was for the table conversation.
Carla, will explain that to you.
Yeah, so I think so we've heard from Sarah that it's an ambition, it's not a promise. And it's also for people to be able to air their people that not everybody can speak in this forum. We've also got Frome Birth Talk here. We've got Jane, who's actually a midwife, and other people in the room. So, and maybe they'll seem simplistic, the solutions, maybe not. So what we'll do with the solutions is I'll put in the recommendations that I'm then going to take them forward. I'm going to write to or have a conversation with Sarah about some of those solutions. So we're going to have about 15 minutes. Paul is going to come around and give you a piece of flip chart and a pen. So have a discussion and then capture your kind of key top 2 solutions and then feedback to the group.
And can we say 10 minutes for the discussions?
We can say 10 minutes because I think we're a bit over time. And yeah, if we can mix the tables up a bit. So particularly these 2 tables here are not mixed enough.
Please stop trashing the equipment. Table number 2. Okay, if everybody's ready. Okay, somebody looks ready over on table 2. Let's go straight over to Anne. One piece of feedback, please, from your table.
We would like to rebalance the narrative. The birthing centre is only closed for births, not the wraparound care, the bit before and the bit after, whatever that's called. That's it. The service is working hard to do everything they can to reopen.
Thank you. Next table, table number 1.
We were talking about conversations with the community, and that actually maybe 30-year-olds or women and men who are able to have, or men aren't able to have babies, but
women.
that there is a demographic that hasn't even heard that the birth centre is not operating as it should, so that more conversation, raise the voice of the issues generally around health access.
Thank you, Ali. Andrew?
Yeah, I think the big point we came up with was that throughout all of this, no one has been critical of the midwives themselves. Everybody recognises that it's the system that's broken.
Thanks, Andrew. Next table. Microphone.
Talked a bit about looking into what's happening nationally, as we keep saying, it's national pictures. So, you know, are other services running? How have they kept running? Also looking at how the town council can support the volunteer network, because it's the volunteers in Frome that are picking up the pieces of the postnatal trauma that we're seeing. Frome Birth Talk particularly, you know, really high referrals, really deep levels of trauma that are being dealt with by volunteers on a daily basis. So how can we put all of our expertise together? How can we support women if it's not going to improve dramatically very quickly? This is ongoing. It's already impacted a lot of women. So can we do anything to help those women?
Great, thank you. And last table, Lisa, I suspect.
We had a number of points, as I'm sure everybody else did, but providing opportunities for forums and further discussions with other people who are working within the service is similar to what Amber had said. Charlotte, and just providing a space and an opportunity to look at some of the volunteer groups and how we can support them.
Thanks, Lisa. Carla, are you going to explain what's going to happen next?
So thank you for that feedback. So we're going to collate all of both the ones you've spoken about and what you've written down, and see what of those are something that Frome Town Council can act upon. What of those can I share with Sarah? So that's one of the recommendations that I'll be making to the council. The other recommendation I'll be making is that the town council supports the campaign from Frome NCT. That both gives Sarah more data, more power, in a sense of like, look, thousands of people have signed this petition. Frome is a very tricky town. Let's just give them what they want. Simplifying. And as Ali said, you know, actually, not everybody in the town does know about this, even the people we know that may be considering children. So that we use our communications machine, wink, wink, Rachel, to promote that campaign, which currently has 600 signatures. And I think we can vastly improve that.
Thank you, Carla. And so then we have some recommendations, which are to support the Frome NCT campaign and to write to the NHS decision makers, inviting them to discuss possible solutions and how Frome Town Council and the Frome community might be able to help. I need somebody to propose. We accept those. Polly.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
Charlotte, was it? When you introduced it, you said sign the petition, and I haven't seen the petition and I don't know what it said, so I don't know what the campaign is that we're supporting or voting on. I don't know what the petition was specifically saying. Is it just to staff it more? Guys, I don't think we can support it unless we've seen it. Is it, what does it, if somebody signs a petition, what are they signing to?
She's just looking it up. Carla, do you have it handy? Max?
Yeah. Yeah, the
Headline of the petition is reinstate community and home births as part of RUH maternity services.
Is that clear, Polly? You're looking doubtful. Is that okay?
And then the text of the petition then goes in to talk about the suspension of those facilities in Frome and Chippenham. So essentially, ask for those to be reinstated, which is clearly what is happening.
Yeah, what I've heard this evening is that there's a national shortage of midwives, and that is something that is not exceptional here. But what is exceptional here is that we've got a lot of talent on the way, and if we're saying that we are, just blanket supporting the movement to ask for home birth, so we're not just saying that we want more midwives, that we are, what's already actually happening, what's actually moving forward, rather than just supporting the campaign. Is it not that?
Carla, have you got a response to that?
You're just saying that we, as Frome Town Council, should support the campaign, but it's worded to one side of the speakers this evening, rather than everybody, is it not?
I mean, I think starting a campaign that says get more midwives would be a bit simplistic. So I think what we're saying is we as Frome Town Council, the people of Frome, we want our birthing centre back.
Yeah.
We understand the complexity. I mean, it's written in the text of the petition as well. We understand the complexity and the staffing issues, but it doesn't mean that we still don't object. Maybe actually, Charlotte, do you want to talk a little bit more?
Can we keep it brief, please?
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's two sides of the same thing, because Sarah has said she wants to reinstate the services. So we all want to reinstate the services. So I think that's and we just would like Frome Town Council to be aware of what's happening and to come on board. And if for any reason the services do not reopen in October and November, and this is an ongoing issue, or further closures happen in the future, then this is something that everyone's aware of, and we've all discussed it. Further data's been gathered, and we're supporting the families of Frome, which is sort of the main point, because until these services are reinstated, we're not supporting those families.
Be with you in a second. I know Sarah wanted to come in on the line, YouTube thing, Zoom.
Do you want to bring Jane in first, and then I'll come in, because I've got a couple of.
Thank you.
Jane, can we keep it brief, please?
I will be very brief. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I do find that surveys are self-selected. It doesn't always give the full picture. I understand the very contentious language that's been used tonight, and it actually has made me want to cry, and I have cried. I don't feel ashamed of being a midwife. I don't feel ashamed of the maternity services. We have about 18 midwives who are on maternity leave at the moment, God bless them. And the fact is, we've used very contentious language like levels of trauma. What about levels of satisfaction with the service? What about levels of women who've had successful, happy experiences and feeding? Please, let's keep the language balanced. We have birth reflections at the RUH. We have friends and family. It is not all bad or negative. Please respect the midwives.
Thank you. I think we're all aware emotions are running high around this subject. So if we can all just be kind and diplomatic. Sarah.
So thank you. Just 2 points for me. Firstly, regards the petition. Of course, I support the petition. I want to bring births back into Frome as soon as it's safe to do so, and I promise that we will do that. The other point I just wanted to make in response to the petition, and I'm sorry, it's now escaped my mind, so I'm going to have to think about it for a minute. So I'm going to come back to you in a moment, if that's all right. I just need to gather my
we
thoughts.
need to go to the recommendations, though. To be aware that you don't have to vote. You can abstain if you're unsure. That's a choice. We're looking at the recommendations as they currently are. which is to support the Frome NCT campaign, to write to the NHS decision makers, inviting them to discuss possible solutions and how Frome Town Council and the Frome community might be able to help. Like I say, you can vote yes or no, or you can abstain. Could anybody propose that for me? Andy Rintmore, seconded by Ben. Still, everyone in favour? Looks like a
Great.
majority to
It
me.
looks unanimous. Is anyone abstaining? So I can just make sure. Okay, anyone objecting? So that's unanimous.
That's great. Thank you. Sarah, would you like to have one very quick last word? Did you remember what you were going to say?
Sorry for my moment there. Yeah, it's just regarding the local picture. Charlotte asked how other trusts are doing. Everybody's got shortages. The difference for us is that we've got a very large geographical area with 5 different locations to staff. That's what makes it more challenging for us. And the number of our vacancies is higher than some of the other trusts. Thank you.
Okay, this discussion could obviously take up the entire rest of the evening, but we're not going to. We're going to have to bring that one to a close. Thank you to all our contributors and for the table discussions and the feedback. Carla will be following that one up with you, Sarah, after. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4. I think this is Rachel. Yeah, if anybody is ducking out now after that discussion, we'll just have a couple of minutes, or needs to shuffle back to their other table.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I'm going to go. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't doubt that Rachel will rattle through agenda item number 4.
Don't worry. No fussing, no messing.
Update on what is happening, what has been happening at Frome Town Hall. Over to you, Rachel. Thank you.
Well, the big headline is that bookings in the system have now exceeded our budget set for 22-23. Hooray! It was a very conservative set budget of 49,924, but we're very, very pleased about that, and new bookings being added every day. So, see if we can get down there. Yeah, I mean, that's it really. How have we done it? Regular bookings, community education, after our service, the probation service going a storm. The Mind Group have increased their sessions to 2 a week. We've had the National Citizen Service, which means we've had 16, 17-year-olds something around the building over the summer, which has been really, really great. And Cubon Education is just about to start as well, Wednesdays and Fridays. So really that's what we've done. Everything has been busy. The one thing I would sort of highlight is that the cafe space, since the withdrawal of Wild co-working, has struggled really to be a bookable space, but we are using it, I can assure you, through staff meetings and dropping in, and for lunch space for staff, and generally as a great unscheduled meeting space. We've got new wedding dates added for 23 and 2024. So that's great. And we've now developed a support team who are crack commando enough to do it without any of our core team staff. So that's really good news and feels like we're moving properly in the right direction. What's been going on around the building? Windows, all of the ground floor now been draft approved. We've got further 2 sessions booked in to sort it out. Community fridge obviously has moved into the brick shed. That has meant that we've done some remedial work on the shed, and so when the fridge moves, it will be a much better usable space for us. The ambition is to move the fridge back to the centre of the town.
Brilliant.
As soon as possible. Still waiting on Mendip, of course.
Of course. Thank you very much, Rachel. Is that the end of that one?
That is the end of that one.
Then you're moving swift. Sorry, Fiona.
I just wanted to, it's not really a question so much as a point or something, an observation about the town hall. I'm just wondering whether anyone else has had the same thought, in that I've had a couple of meetings here myself recently, and I'm just wondering about our balance of space, feeling that, I know obviously there's a cafe, but when you want to sort of book a room, it's hard to sort of book it in terms of everything feeling quite corporate and formal. And so in terms of having a space to have more relaxed meetings, I'm just wondering whether that's ever come up. And I know that, and I don't know where we're at with the conversations around warm banks, etc. I know that the town hall was being discussed as a location for that at some point, which would obviously sort of end up being sort of like a sitting room or something. But I don't know. I'm just wondering whether there's a way of sort of, I feel sometimes the space does feel very formal and corporate. And I'm just wondering whether there's a way of sort of having some sort of space, and whether that's a cafe or turning another room into something that feels a bit more relaxed.
I think Paul's got an answer for that one.
I think it's a really good point, Fiona. I'm not sure it feels too corporate, but respect your opinion. I think there's the warm spaces and things. We had a discussion with councillors this afternoon, and we're sort of moving on that one and coming up with some to-do list, basically. I think the sort of the use of the town hall for informal purposes generally. I mean, the point Rachel was making about the cafe, that's we're kind of keeping it open for that purpose, the kind of fancy a chat, that sort of thing, and that is certainly available to the community, including councillors and staff. So I think there's, and we purposely have sofas around upstairs and downstairs for that purpose too. So I think there's, but the point you make is perfectly reasonable, but there are other things that we are offering too. So fair point.
You as well. And no, when I about the balance, I mean in terms of the meeting rooms, feeling like downstairs to room 4 and then room 4 and room 1 both feel very sort of big desk chairs.
You're saying we need more cushions and bean bags?
I would say that's by design, looking at other offerings in the town as well.
I see what you mean.
But we can change that if that is
something to look at. Thanks for your contribution. And ping pong. Thank you. Serious comments only. And one, Carla.
Very serious comment. I'm wondering about the cafe space. So interestingly, the women that some of the women that were in the previous discussion, they run they're volunteers, and they run groups that are not paid, and they struggle to find space that's affordable. So I'm wondering if that cafe space can be offered to groups that are not profit. It does seem like a great space and a waste of a space if that could be offered to community groups that would struggle to pay.
So we do have a sort of structure in place that allows free space for community groups if they book it less than 2 weeks in advance. So if you ring up and you want your meeting within 2 weeks, then absolutely, if we've got space, it's any community groups for free. At the moment, the current model means that we do charge, but community groups get space at much lower rate. And obviously cafe spaces are very cheapest space. Frome Birth Talks have certainly used us quite extensively before in the past. It is that juxtaposition between trying to meet the budget and,
Very good. Thanks, Kate.
Just
Sarah.
Quickly on offering free spaces to community organisations. There are lots of reasons why it's important not to provide completely free spaces. And not least because all of the other venues in town need to have some income to pay for their bills and to keep themselves open. So yeah, we've worked quite hard to find that balance for organisations, but we do also support them to do their budgeting and their fundraising, etc., in order that they're able to pay for the most appropriate space that meets their needs.
Thank you, Kate. I'm going to take one more comment on this before we move on to the next agenda item, Sarah.
Just to say the refugee hub will be starting in the cafe over in the next couple of months, and that will be 3 bookings a week. So that's a good positive thing.
Great. Okay, everyone happy with those answers? Excellent. And agenda item 5, Rachel, again, update on the online work of the marketing and comms team.
Yes, agenda item 5. Okay, so hopefully you have read the paper. I haven't reported back to council since May, so there's quite a lot of packed in there. So I've literally just given really top line highlights. I hope that nobody feels robbed by that, and please feel free to ask any questions that you want to. Obviously, mostly we're communicating FDC's work through all our media channels. We're delivering projects ourselves. We're also highlighting Frome as a visitor destination. And as I've just said, we're marketing the town hall as well. And our aim is to deliver all of those projects within our strategic objectives. Since our last comms report, it means we do a lot. So since our last comms report, we've written over 82 press releases and had 57 events, although to be fair, 20 of those were the pop-up play events, but they all do need to be marketed, communicated, and all the rest of those. We've delivered Jubilee, Green Breather Days, and as always happens through the summer, we've made preparations. So preparations for Great Big Green Week. This is my chance to give it a little plug. Starts on Sunday, over 30 events, but Cycle Sunday kicks it off. We're looking forward to that. We've also been preparing for Remembrance Day parade with the Royal British Legion and Jane, who was here previously, and of course for Christmas. We've supported numerous events which fit into our strategic objectives, which just to note a few, Climate Film Festival, and who are coming to document Great Big Green Week and Photo Film Festival. We've also had a focus on volunteers this summer, supporting towns, community organisations. We've loved our parks, and we've supported the resilience team and the Wild Bunch. They've been doing pond dipping and bat boxes. So basically, we've had a lot going on, but we've also run the social media gauntlet, it has to be said, most notably both for Bunting Gate and Green Breather Days. Both their existence and their cancellation, not to make too light of it, but thank goodness for Paul McCartney.
He says the same about you, Rach.
Yeah, we have been working to a communication strategy that was last reviewed in 2020. And there was a review booked in for January 2023, but it's now proposed that we bring that timing forward with the hope that we will look at a number of things. Obviously, some branding issues will be informed by the wider strategy, such as who we are and what those strategic objectives are. But some of the things we might want to look at is how we want to appear as a council, who we want to engage with, and when and how and where, and how we can feed views back into councillors. It's more important than ever to align strategies across channels. So, and to have a consistent tone of voice to residents, visitors, and the business community alike. So, and to really ensure that that will cascade down. Therefore, the proposal is that we create a panel of councillors, staff, and external advisors, and that we crack on with that as soon as possible.
Great, that's an excellent update. Thank you, Rachel. Fiona.
I just want to say I think the idea of panel is fantastic. I really like the idea of bringing in external people, because I think it's very hard when you're sort of in it, and I think even as councillors now we're getting in it as well, to sort of see how things look from the outside when you're sort of so much a part of the everyday. So I think that was a really, really good idea on Rachel's part, and yeah, I think it's a really good next step. And yeah, I mean, when you read what in the comms update, what you guys have been doing, it is extensive. There is so much there, and it is incredibly impressive, all the work that you guys are doing. So yeah.
Echoed. Thanks, Fiona. Mel, then Anita.
Just a quick word of warning. It's difficult to devise a communication strategy until we actually have a strategy for the council, and I'm not quite sure when that's going to be disgorged.
Marvelous terminology. Yeah.
I'm quite finished. So it's just a word of warning. You can't go too fast on the communication strategy until we know that.
Acknowledged. Anita.
Thanks, Sarah. Just really to note, because of all the work you do in your team, I think it's phenomenal when you think you are pumping out an average of 3 bits of social media every day on top of everything else that goes on. I just think it's worth saying that it's a pretty phenomenal job. Very hard to stay on top of it, and I think it's an area that is under constant pressure to jump almost every day to something new. So just well done as a team. Thanks.
Thank you, Anita. Well done, Rachel, and your team. I verily conclude this meeting.
Can we vote on it?
Sorry,
Can we
one more
vote on it?
recommendation, which is establishing the panel comprising a few councillors, members of the marketing and comms team and external experts with a review and return to council in November. Fiona proposing, Lisa seconding, everyone agreeing, Max abstaining.
That's Max.
I mean, Mel abstaining.
So that's majority. Thank you, everyone.
I think that does conclude the business for today. Thank you everyone for your contributions. See you next time.